All right, now that we have set up our GitHub account and we do have GitHub desktop on our computer, so let's clone a repository to our local computer. So imagine I want to clone my own repository because I just made it, right? It belongs to me. This is important because you can clone some other people's repository on your computer as well, right? So let me start by cloning my own repository to my local computer. You go to the repository that you want to clone and then click on code, then open with GitHub desktop, click OK. Now automatically this link should show up, right? It basically says that you're cloning from a URL and the URL is github.com/pedram-jj and /pj test, right? This is a repository that we just created, right? Now you want to add it to your local computer. It is asking for a local path. So on my computer, I just put it in my D drive and then GitHub folder, and there's a folder, I just call it PJ test, right? So this is the name of repository. You can change yours, whatever makes sense for you, right? And so let's go ahead and clone that repository. So it's going to take a very short time because we don't have anything on that repository except the README file, right? So now this PJ test, this repository has been cloned to my local computer. So it means that on the right, you see we have, if I go to the second option, which is show in Explorer, if I click on it, it's going to show that folder on my local computer. So let's do that. All right. You see, there it says that, okay, on my D, if I go to D and then GitHub, there's this new folder. Let me go back one step. You see, there's GitHub, and then GitHub, there's this new repository, this folder on my local computer, PJ test. Now, this folder is now connected to my GitHub account repository, right? So it means that if I make changes to this folder, then I can push it to my repository and it will be available to my online GitHub account, right? So let's go ahead and do a simple exercise. So imagine I want to make a new text file, whatever, right? So let's say a text file. I just call it test. And I go ahead and start typing something in that. So I say, okay, hello world, right? And then go ahead and close it. Make sure you save it. Now I made some, guys, look at that. I made some changes to this repository, right? But I made that change on my local computer. It means that if I go back to my GitHub account and if I refresh, nothing will happen. There's going to be still that one README file on my GitHub repository. The reason is that the changes that I made was on my local computer, right? So I have to push it to my repository, right? So of course you have to be connected to the internet and etc., right? So when I make this change, now I have to go back to my GitHub desktop, right? And if you go back to your GitHub desktop, automatically it shows that, okay, there is one changes here, right? And that one change, it seems that there's a new file added. Basically the name is test and the type of the file is text, and you can see what was added, right? So it seems that there is one line of, let's say, code in it, and it's hello world, right? So if you're happy with the changes, you can go ahead, okay, just make some comments for that change. So I say my first code, right? And then it's a good idea to make comments because when you go to your online GitHub account, you want to see what was the change that you made, right? And then you commit to the main. Main means that your main repository, to the main branch of the repository. And then when you make that commitment, or you commit to the repository, then the next step is to push it to the origin, push it to your repository, right? So you can do Control P or click here or just press this push to origin, right? So the idea of pushing something to origin means that make some changes on your local computer and then push it to your GitHub account online, right? So let's do that. Okay, so now we have pushed this change that we just made to our GitHub repository. So now if I go back to my GitHub account, now if I press refresh, you will see that there's going to be one file added to this repository, right? So let's do that. You see, I just refresh the page, and now it's added to my repository. So it's test.txt, right? If I click on it, you'll see that, okay, there's one contributor. The contributor is, it should be Pedram JJ, but and then the file is hello world, right? Okay, so now this is how basically you push things to your local own repository, right? Making changes. Now, what's the point of the cloning a repository? So imagine, I have a repository on my account, and I want to share it with my students, with you guys, right? So I'm gonna put the links on Canvas, but you can simply do something like this. Just type my name and then do GitHub, and the first link is going to be Pedram PJ Algo Trader. Oh, this is my GitHub account, right? So this is a GitHub account, and guys, this the account that I'm logged in is Pedram JJ. This is different than this one, right? So so for example, you see your own name here, and then my profile and picture, basically my GitHub accounts here, right? Now it says that I have a bunch of repositories. These are the public ones, of course, right? So the private ones is not going to show up here, but the public ones, let's say there are 23 of them. And for example, this is ML USU Spring 2021. So basically machine learning course for USU 2021, econometric course for USU 2021, right? So imagine you're sitting in my either econometrics course or machine learning course, and you want to clone this repository to your local computer, right? So you click on this, let's say you click on this repository, and then you basically want to come to code and again clone it to your own local computer. Open with GitHub desktop. Okay, so on your computer, you will see that there's an option, the steps that we just went through together, that you can clone and basically click on that, make a folder on your computer, give it a name, and just simply click on clone. On my computer, it doesn't show it that way because I already have this folder on my computer and this repository has been cloned on my computer. I hope that you can, the steps are straightforward, and you can do it. But if you had any questions, just let me know. Okay, so this is basically how you clone a repository. Okay, after you have cloned that repository to your local computer, then you can go ahead and just click on this Show in Explorer. Then you will see these things on your local computer, right? So these are the things that I created. But because you cloned my repository to your local computer, you will see whatever I see I have on my GitHub account, right? So for example, I'm gonna put the classes here, class 1, class 2, and basically I'm gonna upload the whatever is relevant to class 1, right? So the PDF, the codes, and etc., right? So this way it is going to be a lot easier for you guys to keep track of the files for our course, right? So basically once in a while, and I think I'm gonna make updates every Saturday. So every Saturday night or Friday night, I'm gonna make an announcement. You have to just simply open your GitHub desktop and then come here to the right and just click on fetch to origin, right? So if I do fetch origin, it's going to automatically update this repository on your local computer. So it means that if I make any changes to any of these folders, then I push it to my own repository, then you can basically pull it to your local computer, and basically whatever updates that I made, you can get it by clicking a single button like this, right? You don't need to go to Canvas and download everything, right? Simply, again, every once in a while, you just come here, open this Google Desktop, and just click on Fetch Origin. I highly recommend you, instead of fetch to origin, do something like this. Come to the repository and then send a pull request. So pull means that pull down everything which is available on that person's repository to my local computer, right? So if you do that, it's gonna do it. Because there's nothing new here, so that's why you don't see anything has been updated in these folders, right? Okay, so this is what I wanted to do after setting up your GitHub account, and then pull these folders to your local computer, right? These repositories. If you're sitting in my econometrics course, make sure that you select the econometrics. If you're sitting in my machine learning course, make sure that you select machine learning. Here, you have to do it on GitHub accounts, right? So econometric course, machine learning course. And then you click on any of them, then you go ahead and just open it with GitHub desktop. From your end, you may see something like clone or download. You just click on clone and it open with GitHub, and then clone it to your local computer, right? Then, so what I want you to do is that after you clone that repository to your local computer, there's going to be a folder like this, right? So I want you to go ahead and copy this folder and paste it, maybe paste it exactly at the same drive or your folder, whatever it is, and just change the name to whatever your name is, right? So imagine your name is Alex, I just write Alex here, right? So this means that now this folder is yours. If you make any changes, it's not going to impact my local repository, right? As your professor. So you can play, it's like your sandbox. You can play around with it. So imagine I've put lots of codes on it. You want to play around with the code. Just make sure, or you want to write down your own version of the homework or problem sets. Just make sure that you do it on your own folder, right? This is your folder. Just rename it as your name to make sure that this is yours, and this is my professor's folder. This is my folder. This is Pedram, right? So do not make any changes to this folder. Don't worry, you cannot edit that because I didn't give you edit permission. So if you by accident make any changes here, so for example you went to one of these cheat sheets and deleted that one, you're not going to be able to delete it from on my repository, right? Because it's going to, if you want to commit it or push it to my repository, you will get an error that you don't have access to push things to that repository. Okay, so but I want you to play around with your own folder, not mine, right? So this is yours, and the other one is mine. So which one will get updated automatically when you go to the GitHub desktop? When you go to GitHub desktop, remember this is a repository that we are talking about, right? So it means that if you pull things, it's going to, that folder is going to update it, right? So let's say this is week 2, week 3, and you copied this folder at week 1, right? So this folder doesn't have classes, let's say class 3, 4, 5, but this folder, if you pull request, will have class 3, 4, 5, right? Does that make sense? I hope that this makes sense. But again, if there was any questions, just let me know. I'll talk about this GitHub in the class, I think in the first couple of classes, and hopefully things are going to be a lot easier when you see it. I do these things in class as well. The goal, again, let me tell you quickly what's the goal. The goal is to make sure that you don't need to go to, for example, Canvas and download everything on your local computer. You can, right? You can, but sometimes it's not necessarily the best way, because imagine, for example, we have a Python crash course. This is for machine learning. For econometrics, we have our crash course, right? There are going to be 8 Jupyter notebooks file here, and maybe some pictures and etc., some PDFs. You don't want to one by one download them on your computer and then put them in separate folders. At the end of the day, you're gonna have a nice folder like this at the end of the semester, all the classes, let's say 26 classes, with all the codes inside them, with all the problem sets, all the cheat sheets, all the textbook, and etc. This is going to make our life a lot easier, and I don't need to constantly upload things on Canvas as well. I change my local folders and then push it to my repository, and then you pull my repository to your own local computer. I think this is a lot more efficient. And it's going, you can use GitHub for your final projects as well, and you can work with each other in making changes to the code, and you can keep track of those changes. So GitHub and GitHub Desktop are something that's very popular among developers, but even if you're not a developer, you should learn how to do these things, especially these days that everything is transitioning to an online version, right? So I think it's a big plus. I highly encourage you to play around with GitHub and GitHub Desktop. Just YouTube a bunch of videos, and then hopefully by the time that you're starting the class, you don't have any questions. But if you had, just let me know. Okay, good luck. See you in class.